Hey everybody, I'm posting it on Facebook right now. Okay, I guess we're going to talk a little bit about the Zimmerman trial. There's absolutely no other news going on apparently in the mainstream media. Um, so when it comes to what's going on with the Zimmerman case, one has to wonder because I think one must consider the fact that Trayvon's dad is a Mason, and when it happened, it looked like basically a controlled event, basically a thoroughly fleshed out sort of conspiracy against castle law, and this is before this happened pretty early. Let's go ahead and take a look at the timelines here. Zimmerman, Trayvon. Let's just do Trayvon shooting. Let's see what that does. Trayvon shooting. It happened in February, and January, February, March. Yeah, so they obviously knew that the Republican National Convention was going to be in Tampa. Could they have passed? You know, something clearly happened wherein the only thing it resulted in was just some sympathy towards Obama or towards black people. But then you have to wonder, why did they pick somebody who is not generally considered to be like white to be the role of Zimmerman? And he is multiracial, I guess, Hispanic. But there's a lot of Hispanic, but he looks particularly like of Native American descent. And maybe he was just the guy that they had available who could fill the role. But it turned out to be extremely good PR because you actually have at least Anderson Cooper, for instance, can talk about Zimmerman and speak about him in such a way that it's mildly like favorable. I mean, even if it's factual, where he says he can actually express like because had Zimmerman been a very white person, like so white that it was like Anderson Cooper would, like somebody very white basically, then Anderson Cooper would have actually, or anyone in the very PC media, even if it were factual, would never say something to the extent of poor Zimmerman, that he was about to be killed or whatever. I just think the whole thing's controlled. But because of the fact that Zimmerman actually has this, somewhat Native American looking appearance, is just enough to sort of suggest that he's not necessarily white, but not black. Because of that, basically, they're able to be more or less factual, and it's sort of like a gateway basically. It's sort of like he's just enough in that gray area where we have the ability to bring up, the issues of racial division and its impact on like the justice system. And I mean, nothing is quite as nothing quite clearly depicts that as that famous football O.J. Simpson case. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to go ahead and bring up the thing where I can see people's comments. But it does cause one to wonder whether or not they have always had it in the background to whether or not they have always had it in the cards to sort of like spin it on a dime. Because let me tell you, like the content of whether, or like, because at first it was stirring up like some racial division, like they were actually using it to bring racial division into the country. like cause conservatives to think like, oh, Zimmerman is, you know, because I don't know that the mainstream media ever got information out there. In fact, I think there's a video of Zimmerman being brought into or brought into the police department, and there's no like blood on him and stuff like that. And they haven't shown any of that. But you know, like I said, I think that what they've done is they just happen to have this immeasurably convenient case by which they can sort of spin on a dime the conspiracy. And so they've repurposed this event, because the event was originally an attack on Castle Law prior to the Tampa Republican National Convention. Okay, let's take a look. You hear about the new bullcrap law here in Florida? Yes, I do. Are you in Florida? We should probably meet up, because I'm in Florida also. But the law is, I guess people were like gambling using internet cafes. And I don't understand how they're going to ban all internet cafes if, you know, Starbucks is an internet cafe basically. So I don't know what they're doing with that, but something, there could be something bigger to it. But for them to warrant such a overreaching law like that, that's sort of like a big deal that they would ban internet cafes like that. So what they plan on doing with that, I don't know. I'll have to look into that more, but I guess it was poorly written or something, because it's a little too broad. So not sure what's going on with that. I have to look into that. If you want to fill me in on what your theory is, I'll read it. Oppenhead says rioting in 2013 won't work in my opinion. Too many people are starting to become preppers and stock up on ammo. I feel bad if the black people riot, there will be a lot of mass casualties. I really wouldn't worry about that. I kind of live in a county by which the native population, because there's a lot of people that come in and out, is African American. And while there is like, you know, I mean, there's just no, I mean, they would have rioted a long time before now just because of the employment issues here. So people are not going to riot if, you know, they engineer a riot? Certainly. And I would say that they've probably done, if they wanted to engineer a riot, they would have done a lot better than they're doing. They're even going so far as to getting like the pro-Constitution professor to be a very respectable black man, and they're showing that Zimmerman has like a black friend, and it's possible. I mean, they could, but a lot of like activist type black people are actually church-going black people, and you know, can they become crazy and stuff like that? Kind of, but I mean, like black people have a very good head on their shoulders, and I don't know if they're going to actually do that. Are they concerned though? Because some places could go pretty crazy, like near or around Miami and stuff like that. It is essentially fortuitous that Zimmerman would look like oppressed by the man, not being all the way white, so to speak, and thus it would not be such a riot that it would essentially attack, you know, a bunch of innocent key institutions or something like that, which is, in my opinion, unfortunate. I like destabilization. But anyway, they're apparently sending a tropical storm or hurricane, and almost certainly that is happening to make its way over here into Florida. And you know, do I like you know, maybe it's a piece, like we deal with a lot of hurricanes and storms and stuff like that. Oh, excuse me. We deal with a lot of hurricanes and storms and stuff like that, but that's just annoying, right? It's annoying to have such a dumb population that they have to like engineer a hurricane, potentially doing whatever damage that's going to do, to send it into your community just to keep people from rioting. You know what I mean? So obviously we have some grounds to be aggravated about that. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at what else. I love that there's so many comments coming in. If anything that you guys want to say, just shoot it out there. I believe that Zimmerman attacked the kid. When he fought back, he shot him. You see, the thing is that I don't think that we'll see. It's an entirely created story. In fact, now they're starting to make it out to be that Trayvon's body had been manipulated with by the medical examination throughout the medical examination process, because they're saying that Trayvon doesn't have any of Zimmerman's DNA, or yeah, Trayvon doesn't have any of Zimmerman's DNA on him. And if Zimmerman's bleeding and he's being punched, then why doesn't Trayvon have any blood on him? But then coincide this with the non-credible witness shipping bio, and this guy like apparently does not remember his medical examination, which was such a high-profile case. You have the President of the United States like pausing the economic sector just to lament on the incident and call him like one of his children. And this goes into like part of like everything is so bad that it's weird, and I expect some sort of like a flip of the coin kind of thing. But anyway, yeah, they basically, when it comes to that, it would suggest that Zimmerman's body may have been tampered with by politically or special interests, political motivations, that Obama or proponents of Obama got involved with Trayvon's body to get rid of the blood on Trayvon's hands or clothes. And I think they did say something about tampering with the evidence. So there's clearly, like I say, a controlled conspiracy theory here. So the event just didn't even happen, in my opinion. In my opinion, it was a completely staged event, and I personally know that the FBI operating out of Orlando, I mean, just take a look at what happened with the Sarniev friend, and that the FBI operating out of Orlando is doing some fishy stuff, because there is very likely to be an FBI informant operating out of Orlando, which was responsible for basically subverting and dishing out disinformation, and which was actually quite fortunate for me that I was able to try to bring this person to court, because it was only like a 2-hour. Never mind, I'm not going to talk over on that. So. This isn't 1992. I'm not sure what that reference is to 1992. Most black folks I know are nicer than most of the white I know. Yes, they are. I mean, like, it would be unfortunate. I mean, like, but what needs to be understood is that when it comes to particulars, that is obvious. That is almost always the case. When it comes to what the powers that be have engineered into society through dispositions like mob mentality, that is another case, and it sort of drives the way people are, and obviously incites the more evil elements or more evil members to do what they do. And I want the truth to come out. I want them to know that they don't need to be disposed against the state, that they don't need to be disposed against the white Americans. And a great amount of sabotage occurred. I mean, it needs to be known that the Civil War was fought by elements of secret societies, of which the founding fathers were a part of, to the extent that a civil war was waged with Lincoln being assassinated, because they were co-opting the abolitionist movement, which was originally funded in order to stop the abolitionist movement, ironically. And they were attempting to co-opt that movement, and in order to deport the slaves, they did not want to release a bunch of malcontents into American society, by which they would necessarily be like enemies of the state perpetually, generation by generation. And so people think like, oh, that's so racist to say that, and we don't want to be deported to Africa. It's like, no, it's not going to happen now. But let's cure the bad blood by at least, you know, setting the record straight and talking about what happened there, because this would have been before Africa would have turned into the hellhole that it is now, and there would have been a very progressive American colony. Not it wouldn't have even been a colony. It would have been like you guys are your own country or something like that in Africa for the African people, and it would have had the merits of the Constitution to progress the continent of Africa. And the international bankers and the assassination of Lincoln. I mean, Lincoln would have, like, because that's Liberia. Look into the American Colonization Society, and I've already gone through that. Let's see. Will the hurricane coincide with the verdict? Well, I don't know, because they're talking about wanting to do the verdict tomorrow. But what may eventually occur, like, because the hurricane won't hit here for another, I don't know, week, and apparently almost all the projections have it going into Florida. And I guess it looks too fishy or something like that. But, you know, let's say the verdict happens, and then there's civil unrest, and then it's like, oh, you know, in 2 days we've got a massive hurricane which they can infuriate. I was having that combo today, and it really depends on the state you live in. Let's see. None of it needed even happen, really. Right, exactly, B, it's all fabricated. What exactly happened is irrelevant. Or isn't. LA riots, 1992. Oh, yeah, the LA riots. Yeah, those were bad, but, that's LA, and people, I don't know, we all know that there's some propensity to be violent over there, and people, I would say that the blacks here in the southeast are a little bit disposed to be, well, never mind, let's see. I'm guessing that they're different. I mean, like, a lot of them are well-to-do. And, let's see. Yes, LOP. Yes, LOP, exactly. Okay. Now, but there was something else I wanted to talk about. Oh, and then you see that 3D animation that they're doing, and that's pretty interesting, because when the 3D animation is what was I thinking about that 3D animation? I was thinking about I don't know why I brought that up. Never mind. Okay. Let's see. What what about Egypt? So, some pretty interesting stuff about Egypt, I think, could be made, because I was watching the segment with Egyptian TV, and they made the statement, you know, this is not about the future of Egypt, this is about the future of humanity. So, that right there is basically making a claim to conspiracy and conspiracy theory, and pretty rampant amongst and probably one of the reasons that the Arabic communities are targeted is due to the open admission of things like the cabal and their control over the world. And it's like on their TV stations, basically, on their, like, you know, well, you look at Press TV, which is Iranian TV, and they actually air shows about the Illuminati and their global cabal and stuff like that. And so what drove the ousting of Mubarak was not simply like, oh, our country, or, you know, unemployment and stuff like that. But I mean, yeah, those things contributed, but what drove it was an ideology, an anti-conspiracy ideology And that is why there is a concern within the West that powers will gain control over Egypt. And is Egypt a nuclear state? Is Egypt a nuclear state? I don't know. A nuclear power? It has research reactors, 8 nuclear power plants. It's almost certainly under a illegitimate reign. They've been disarmed, I think. But regardless, are they capable? Are they capable, just like any country, of standing a sizable threat? Certainly. And luckily, they got rid of Mubarak because I think the Muslim Brotherhood put like a huge multi tens of thousands hit on a Floridian pastor named Terry Jones, and you'd think that would warrant some level of security, but there was absolutely no security around this man. Nor was there any. That would also warrant a media presence, but there was no media presence around that man. So, and then I think it's come out that that's basically like that video, "Innocence of Muslims," was a CIA op, and thus it's probably the case that Terry Jones is likely to be some sort of federal government asset. Well, when I say federal government asset, I mean, like Alex Jones mentioned today, some sort of foreign entity. So the federal government is essentially under the control of foreign banking interests. Well, foreign money creation cabal interests. Um, let's see. So let's talk about Hastings. Yeah. So I think Hastings was killed as a display of force, if he was killed even, with the space lasers. And I'm going to give these things a name because I don't know if they have a name because they're classified. So I'm going to call them, I will call them SAT lasers, okay? Which would just mean, which I think would just refer to space-based directed energy weapons. And what it looks like, well, I'll just bring up the photo. It seriously looks as though Hastings was driving late at night. This is assumed that it's not an entirely controlled event, because typically such things like that, like I don't think, well, we're gonna talk about it later, but here we go. Just take a look at this. Take a look at that wreckage right there. So you can plainly see that the car is melted, like extremely melted. The wheel looks relatively intact, and the local news reporter said that the engine was outside of the car, about 60 yards away, and was actually behind the trajectory of the car. It were as though the engine basically fell out of the car. And what that may suggest is that the car got so hot that the engine block or whatever, the engine, basically just melted through the body and fell out. At which point the car, already going so fast with the wheels going, just kept going. And it looks like that laser was just barreling down right on the driver. So you see that just look at how it wrecked. It was not like wrapped up around the tree or anything. It was like it just rolled into the tree over here. So, unfortunately, that's probably Hastings right there, which is a bunch of powder, or whoever that was. Hastings could have been dead. They could have sat him in the car and then, pushed his foot on the gas and then. But is this a bomb? I don't think so. No, it looks like if it were a bomb, it was some sort of bomb on top of Hastings. But even then, why would it warrant such a extremely hot fire that it was melting the car And instead, no, I think this is a case of directed energy weapons, literally being shot out of the sky and killing him. And it was more or less sort of a warning shot. I think it was more or less of a planned event. They basically. It's unfortunate that he decided to get up in the middle of the night. See, that's the only thing that makes me feel like it's a controlled sort of thing, because it's convenient that it happened at night. Because had it happened in the middle of the day, there would have been a ton of witnesses like, oh my God, this car just you know had this big laser beam shooting down on it, and I'm not sure that you can actually see that thing. But some people actually said that the Gulf oil spill actually was the result of Gulf oil spill laser. Let's see if we can find the images on that. Yeah, there it is. So I haven't vetted this picture, but apparently they're saying that. I mean, you can clearly see that this is not just some glare effect, because the the laser looks like it's reflecting off the water right there, right? So what this and there's multiple pictures of it actually. There's another one, and to put it simply, all they had to do was fire a laser down on there and potentially, pierce the ignite the fuel basically. And I think Halliburton was out there beforehand, so they could have simply put some explosives out there to coincide with the laser blast or something like that. And this was definitely a warning shot as well. Just letting everyone know, like, hey, we've got the godlike powers, so don't interfere with what we're doing. Here's some more pictures here. And what's to account for this light source? So let's see. All right, let's go ahead and get off this topic. All right. I think that let's see. Loppenhead says, I think the Israelis had control over the previous faction, but lost it in the first Egypt revolution. They are trying again now, though. Military coup. I could be wrong. No, that's you see, like when you've got Mubarak saying the Israelis are behind things, but then at the same time calling them the descendants of pigs and humans, then what you're looking at right there is controlled opposition. So they basically, a lot of what they're doing is putting these inflammatory sort of Hitler types into power so that they can play the victim. And Mubarak was almost certain, like, that's actually what they said. I think one of the reporters was like, they actually believe that the West that Mubarak was a puppet of the West. And once again, this kind of plays into the possibly Zionist conspiracy, which is trying to make Obama look like a Muslim infiltrator, basically, which is like Obama is this, somehow the Muslims compromise the United States and then put one of their, insiders, their pinko commie Muslim insiders into presidency somehow. So, I don't know what they want to do with that, but is that what they are essentially, would they have headed in that direction? Yeah, but right now once they entertain even the slightest amount of a conspiracy, it's going to naturally gravitate towards the truth, which is because how believable is a conspiracy against Muslims when it's been the terrible? How believable is a conspiracy pro-Islam, pro-Muslim, when so much has essentially been done to, control and destroy them, and never mind that. So that train crash killed 15 people. Potentially more than that, potentially 50, because 35 are still missing. So that is, and I'm certain that that was a directed energy weapon right there too. And it was simply fired onto the tracks to either derail the train, or maybe they shot the train or something. And it was in Canada, and and then that could correlate to the fact that the Canadians actually, I think the mayor of Quebec was found guilty of pedophilia or something like that. I don't remember, but so then they pull somebody out, and they probably started cracking down on some bad stuff going on in Canada, and nevertheless, the power structure had to sort of warn them, like, whoa, you guys need to chill out here. Here's an example of what I mean. Like, that plane was, this entire thing is controlled too. Like, that plane was supposed to be much higher off the ground, and it probably was, and they probably cut the rudder off, they cut the tail off, and then, you see the interior. I mean, is there a fire? No, everybody just got out. So how do you get all that fire on top of the plane? Well, they're firing lasers at the top of the plane, and that's why that's why the young kid that got pulled away, was like the roof fell in on people. So I mean, like, was he like, there was a big fire inside and the roof fell in on? No, it was like somehow the top of the plane was on fire to such an extent that it was melting a section of the roof to fall in on people, and that could only be the case if there's like some sort of a laser firing the top of it. Okay, so recent events would suggest that with such an such an obvious conspiracy going on now with the NSA leaker, etc., and so many people essentially becoming embarrassed for supporting Obama and Obama's regime, pro-liberal regime, a lot of people are wanting to speak out. A lot of people are wanting to take action, and it's happening I knew this would happen. It's happening just a little bit too quick for the powers that be, who essentially want to basically control this and essentially get away with the conspiracy, or for whatever it is. And people have to go at a pace which is a little bit slower, and sensitive people who essentially have voices in this world, like significant voices, are high priority targets right now. And if they want to, resist, or they want to take action, they're going to need to be, much more clever about it. I would suspect that such people are being monitored literally through their walls, through satellites, picking radiation up through the walls of their houses, and listening to their every move. And there's probably teams of like 50 people literally just listening to them and planning ahead with what they're thinking and what they're doing. And essentially those kind of people need to be very clever, but if they want to resist, because I ultimately promote those sort of activities, but at the same time it's kind of like, it looks to me like they're heading in a direction that they may have planned for some time. And is it overall good or whatever? I don't know. I guess, go ahead and take their warning and sort of simmer down a little bit in terms of your resistance, but educate yourselves, And the more educated you are, the more likely that they will not actually successfully do their massive genocidal cards, which would be like World War III and things like that. And so, do I want it to come crashing down? Yeah, but obviously there is. They have a control structure which is very much capable of, ensuring their survival. And we just did a show last night about ways to potentially, literally blackmail the entire world. And sorry, I'm watching this 3D animation here. All right, so witness saw sparks coming out for the impact. I think Israelis had control over the previous action. Let's see. Witnesses saw sparks coming out before the impact. Yeah, so that would be consistent, I think. And then there's also the fact that the dude, like, I'll just go ahead and bring it up right now. We're going to go ahead and go through the Asiana 214 conspiracy. Asiana 214 declares emergency well before landing. That's the head of this person's post, and they have a link to the inside the captain's ATC recording. I don't know what that is, but Asiana 214 declares emergency well before landing. Quote, Asiana 214 did declare an emergency well before landing. In all the reports I've seen on mainstream media, all of them seem to infer some sort of pilot error with the 777 sinking on final approach, coming in short, slipping the seawall, which led to the crash. But SFO tower recordings tell a different story. In fact, an emergency was declared with tower telling all aircraft on the ground to hold their position around 3 minutes before the crash. Now just imagine that real quick. So they're actually like 3 minutes before the crash, they declare a state of emergency, and they tell, like, when you saw the images, you just saw the emergency crews going around in circles, which is really weird. They were afraid to approach that plane. Okay, the tower telling all the aircraft on the ground to hold their position around 3 minutes before the crash. That would have put Asiana 214 about 10 miles from landing on a straight approach. So the plane is 10 miles out when they know something is about to go down. Okay, some SFO tower recordings are below. In the YouTube recording, note that at 46 seconds, the tower says hold positions and instructing aircraft to go around. You will hear the Asiana captain talking to tower, and tower says at 1 minute and 8 seconds that emergency vehicles are responding. Shortly after that, you can hear the Asiana captain saying, "I'm in trouble." See the second recording. At 1:45, tower says the airport is closed. It's not until 3:35 that you hear the rescue vehicles asking permission to cross runways. At 5:31, you hear aircraft talking about the crash and people walking away. The Asiana captain clearly knew he had a problem well before he reached the runway. Tower never even announced any sort of crash or emergency, but other aircraft on the ground reported it. Something happened at least 10 miles out, and this all doesn't make any sense at all, particularly with not one of the mainstream media reports I have seen, such as CNN, have made any mention of the Asiana captain saying he was in trouble and requesting emergency vehicles. I mean, that's a big deal. So what is going on here? Okay, and then you've got this witness who describes seeing the tail fall off before even touching the ground. At no point in the supposed cell phone footage would we be inclined to distinguish the tail specifically coming off. Yeah, so in the cell phone footage, you're just like, it just looks like this sucker is grinding into the ground. At no point you're just like, it looked like the tail came off. You know what I mean? Like, why would that witness on the ground, this initial witness, say that? Not only that, but this witness is like, I saw it wobble, and then it looked like it flipped over and landed on its back. Well, that would suggest that that sucker did a cart roll, and that's the captain, like, freaking out because he can't steer in a pitch direction. I don't know if it's pitch or yaw or whatever. He can't because there's no rudder. So he ends up cartwheeling by accident, and she thought it landed on its back. That's just to show how there was this cartwheeling effect. But anyway, he ended up correcting it and landing on, which is amazing. Like, this captain is a total hero, at least within good sectors of the intelligence community. Saved everyone on that plane. Total hero. But the fact that he was 10 miles out 3 minutes before the crash, he's already declaring an emergency, that's the tail still being on there, because the tail didn't come off until the landing gear came out. So the pilot was essentially warned somehow. Like, the pilot was warned beforehand, at which point all of the people in the airport kind of knew what was about to happen, whatever that was, and then the pilot did what he did to try to survive it. But clearly they wanted the crash to occur and look like it was a pilot error, and that just didn't happen. So I don't know if it was a hit or what, or a display of force. Then, of course, this kid gets pulled away after he contradicts the supposed video we have, probably fake footage, because he said the plane spins or flips before they even hit the ground. So he says that the plane actually did a flip in the air, and then they hit the ground. Now, in the footage that you see, that plane like literally hits the ground and then pops back up, and then hits the ground again. And that's just, he never said anything about that. I mean, they're just trying to stay consistent with the stuff that's already leaking out in their staged cell phone videos. He also says the roof fell in on them. I mean, that's a big one right there. I mean, look at, does it look like, how was a fire where people are sitting, all the roof fell on? Why is there a fire going on at the top of the plane? It's getting shot by lasers from, you know, stuff that they use to compromise the globe. Then CNN mentions how people ran into the water thinking they were suffering chemical burns, and you look at where the fire occurred and the way it looks. So, and then not to mention there's one of the victims who died, and and then they said she might have been run over by, like, run over by a vehicle is code for this person died sustaining injuries that we cannot account for. And so what they say is this person was hit or struck by a vehicle, or it was a vehicular manslaughter, and they always say those things whenever they're like random injuries that they can't account for. And more than likely that this person died because this person was cooked by the lasers coming down, and that's why they said that. I think the pilot got threatening message from the Illuminati for whatever reason, and they used directed energy to burn the tail off of during the landing. That's why the emergency crews were hesitant to approach. So, and then you've got this thing with this coming out with the men to bury Michelle Knight, and they've all got this. Unfortunately, the only person that they've talked to is just one nasty man for the past 10 years, and so they all have this ghetto-like accent, and this is going to have PR implications, because when you got this mixed with the Trayvon thing, mixed with a number of other things, there could be sort of like a literal attack going on with hip hop culture, basically, because that's just sickening, basically. So, there's a gag order on the Hastings case. Probably. In fact, when the gag order originally went out on the Aurora case, there was a article saying that the gag order was in place because due to national security concerns, and it's like, what? So a fishy shooting happens, and suddenly it's a matter of national security that they have to put a gag order out. So Mubarak equals Israel. It looks like a comment was removed. I just don't know what it was. Okay. Mubarak equals Israel. I would say that's probably true. So if the West is funding Mubarak, and Mubarak's in there inflaming situations, like you really think that the Palestinians think they're doing anything good, or Hamas is doing anything good by firing a dud rocket into Israel, and no, that would essentially be what's called controlled opposition, which is or COINTELPRO, which is people pretending to be part of the resistance and doing things to basically subvert and destroy the resistance. And Mubarak would essentially be that. And I agree with that. On the So what they're worried about is getting somebody legit into office, and you can be damn well sure that the lack of news and smoke screens have to do with not just that situation in Egypt, but probably a lot of other places that have voices and are speaking out, and Canada even. And all it takes is just demonstrations like you've been seeing with the lasers, and that can tend to compromise people. You gotta get smart basically if you want to resist. But apparently the cabal is in fact stirring and making things suspicious and doing things to drum up conspiracy theories, and willing to entertain conspiracy theories. And obviously this is the sort of haywire activities that you're going to see. And it is a ooh, that lizard's about to get that moth, and I want to watch it. My cat is so obsessed with that right now. Okay, get it. I'm sorry. Let me take it. It's gonna escape the lizard. Okay, so gag order on Hasey's case on the death report. Pitch, or you mean roll there? Roll is that, I think. Pitch would be that. No, pitch is this, right? And then this is yaw. Have you heard about the farm in Canada? Is the farm like human trafficking? But have I heard about it? No, I haven't. Can't show the loss of power, which is exactly what is going on. Egypt was a complete loss of power. Yeah, I definitely think so. But see, Egypt sort of coincides with where they want this to go, which is this Obama impeachment. Obama is a member of the Saudi royalty who has been sent to subvert the Constitution and install Sharia law globally. And, it's just, I don't think people will buy that. I think what they're essentially dealing with is some people operating under that scheme and never really understanding just how difficult that is to actually implement or control. I mean, they did a lot to try to suggest it, but in the process of attempting to suggest there is a certain conspiracy, too many people got too smart to the actual conspiracy, and so now there could be this inside faction which very much plans on, bringing about a new age, like even in a nice way, thinking that they're doing something good, and sort of repurposing the scheme that they had going on before this happened. So it's a lot. I would say that there's a lot of confusion going on, and there's probably a lot of mind changing happening, at least on a week-by-week basis. But ultimately, the damage that's been done represents a sort of wave, a sort of behavior wave. And really what this comes down to is you've got the third party, which is a bunch of, clueless people. And these are people that are like the power source. And then you have a struggle going on between, the people that want to not be under control, and the people that want to have control. And then it's like they're becoming almost like friends. Not even friends, but sort of like, it's sort of like the relationship between the Batman and the Joker, wherein they almost appreciate each other, or like the movie in The Prestige, where you have the two magicians who find purpose in the struggle that the other person gives that person. And so you naturally see a sort of Hegelian dialect of thesis and antithesis going on with both sides resulting in synthesis. And it's almost like vampires and werewolves, like I described before, which is like, you know, in a room with a bunch of people, you might have a intelligence asset, and you might have a conspiracy theorist in there, and there's common ground between them, wherein one is wherein they're like each other in some aspect, but at the same time they're very much opposed to each other, and so this results in a sort of bond, and naturally we learn from each other, and we become like each other in some ways because we're not like the other third party, which are the sheep, and we struggle to control that third party. Is the gag order on the Hastings? Be right back. Have you heard about the farm in Canada? Can't show the loss of power. Okay, yes, or yes to your pitch and y'all roll, etc. Oh, very good. Thank you, Terry. So, yeah, the top U.S. military brass go to this farm and rape and kill children, then feed the bodies to the pigs. It was portrayed in the Hannibal film. That is so scary, and there's something so reasonable / realistic, reasonable to believe in it when it comes to things like Hostel. And you know, they make it out to be just like a money thing, or they make it out to be sort of like this dungeon looking thing, but I actually suspect that a lot of these activities occur in literally like mansion like settings with very, very freaky things, like people that have almost been turned into furniture, and it would definitely cause trauma in people who see it. And I imagine that somebody being inducted gets sort of relinquishes control of themselves. They get into these situations and see these things that are unspeakable, unimaginable, and then suddenly they get sexually pleased, at which point it's like a mind control thing, because suddenly there's this alleviation, like, oh my God, like I'm above this, and I would never want to like cross this power. And you can see how this kind of stuff, you know, compromises people, and it basically forms the empire that you see before. Well, you can't see. It forms this hidden empire, which is really just a bunch of it's amazing. It's amazing how but that's why you have to keep your wits about you, basically, because you can't expect such people to ever entertain concepts of willing to allow the public to know what goes on or what's happening. And ultimately, those entities that partake in those sort of activities will, I don't know, I just they kind of need to understand that when it really boils down to it, they need to be concerned about their own place in the universe. I mean, they think that, I'm certain that they think that such activities brings them into the center of the universe or something like that, some sort of obscure rationale, but it's blind. And they need to think about things like, you know, they might even say, I'm going to hold you, or I'm going to try to blackmail you until you tell me that my soul will be judged this way. And it's like, dude, you won't even be able to counter the force of, say, a black hole or a supernova, or there's things so much larger than you, or like a highly advanced, you know, just an alien race that is as old as we are, which is not that old, and lacks the sort of bullshit that we're going through. You know, I mean, like, there's just, they have no clue, what they will end up facing, and they need to repurpose the the sort of things that they've managed to produce. I don't know. It's obvious. I don't even know why I have to reason with them. All right, let's see. Um, there is certainly a guiding of it, a taking advantage. Sure. Yeah, the top U.S. military brass go to this farm, and okay. So let's take a look at and Batman and Joker are essentially the same person, just on different ends of the spectrum. Yeah, that's what I was trying to say. Yeah, and then eye to the hostile farm, etc. Yucky. I'm back. Hey, what's up? Oh, it looks like we're coming to the end of the hour, and I'm starting to see how I really just don't like only taking an hour to do this. I'd rather, maybe go another hour, but right now I think it's pretty proficient or efficient to just go for an hour, because if I start doing 2 hours, then I'll run into let's see. Can I get a shout out for a sub? What's up, Shark Bader 124? Let's see. Yeah, Lop, chaotic good evil, I called it. Okay. Now let's see. Thanks, guys, for bringing your questions here, because it gave me some content. The lack of activity going on really sort of suggests, number one, that there is confusion. Number two, that there is stalling going on. Stalling like things are messing up. And number three, that this would fall in line with what I just said, like Egypt, possibly even Canada or Quebec. There are huge formations of groups of people who are being very clever right now and taking activities against the cabal, and that would warrant such public demonstrations as these laser firings. I'm just going to go down the GLP real quick, and serious question. U.S. Homeowner. Well, let's see. Breaking. New evidence suggests Quebec train explosion was caused by sabotage. Yeah, but they were trying to say that even though it's caused by sabotage, well, not sabotage, but by tampering, that it was not terrorism or something like that. Let's see. Models are showing a Cat 2 hurricane slamming into Florida East Coast either Sunday or Monday. And that would be, well, that'd be a little while from now. But nevertheless, it's not late in the week next week. Canadian University professor arrested for producing child pornography. Maybe that's another good sign. You see, this is a warning to all conspiracy theorists, though. You never know. I think, like, the EU is actually, this is a rumor, I guess, that the EU is trying to make legal pedophilia and child pornography. And they may be doing that with good intention. And I know that you're like, what? But obviously, like that right there, what happens is they make up a charge for child pornography, and then that's the way that they compromise you, basically. And then a lot of people are like walking around compromise. And so if they legalize it, then they basically get rid of that avenue for corruption. And then, because the point is you have to bring down the conspiracy. And it's, when you bring down the conspiracy, then at least you get rid of like child torture and stuff like that. And then you can deal with laws like pedophilia later. But you never can tell. Like if somebody says that they've got 1 million pictures of child porn or whatever on their computer, then how do you know that's just not the government ensuring that that person's going to get um, like that there's going to be this extrajudicial justification for fucking that person up because of that rumor. You know what I mean? While they're being incarcerated. Let's see. Thank you for subbing me, Sharkbaiter. You'll search David Hawkins in the greatest conspiracy ever told to learn about the pig farm. Okay, I'm gonna check that out. That's some sick shit right there, and you can damn well be sure that that is how they control things. So it's going to take a concerted effort, and you know, where are they going in general? I don't know. Okay, well, very good night to everybody. I think that's the end of the hour, and I will see you tomorrow, same time, 11 p.m. Eastern. See you.